Hey guys, it's Fred. This is going to be a short video. Some people says they like my stories. Maybe they're just being kind and nice. But when I was discussing this, I started to bring it up, and then I said, well, it's not the right time. In number 5 video that I was doing concerning Mr. McNally and stuff, I was talking about domestics and how people are when you get involved in a domestic and how it goes south as a police officer. It always changes. But it brought up a story I had, and I went ahead and I'm just going to put it on a separate video here, real short, and it may be interesting to some of you. Back during, I think it was around 1990 or so, when O.J. Simpson had killed Nicole and so forth, and they changed everybody around the United States started changing their domestic violence laws, and Kentucky changed theirs. Once upon a time, if a police officer showed up on a domestic, the woman, usually the woman, but you may have a domestic against a man, 1 in 1,000 maybe, but it did happen, but it was very rare that the wife would assault the husband. It was usually the woman, and the law said that for a police officer to arrest, because he didn't observe, if he didn't see the assault take place, he had to see damage. He had to see some kind of a physical indicator on the spouse where they had been assaulted. And so you would go, and there would even be times where you would see a woman go into the next room or step into the kitchen or come out of the bathroom or whatever, and she may not have scratch marks on her arm or her chest or face or whatever when she went in there, but when she come out, she had scratch marks, because they knew in order to have their husband arrested, they had to show the police officer some kind of physical assault. And they would come out and say, look here, here's what he did to me. And the husband's face, he would, you could tell. But because the law had changed in the 90s, after they said that if O.J. Simpson, if the police would have acted when Nicole had called the police several times on O.J. whipping up on her, if they would have reacted instead of treating him as a star, a hero, that she would be alive today. So they changed the law, and they said that a woman, at least here in Kentucky, a woman no longer had to show physical assault. All a spouse had to do is say that they had been abused, they had been assaulted, and that's what they did. After that, all you had to do was show up on the scene, and if the wife said, my husband threw me across the room, my husband hit me, or if the husband said that, which, how many husbands out there wants to claim that their wives beat them up? So it was a rare. Well, anyway, I had got off. I don't think I've told this story. If I have, I'm sorry. But I had got off. I'd already called in 10-7 for the day and just had got home. And I think Sheila had meatloaf made, mashed potatoes, and that's one of my favorite meals. And I couldn't wait to sit down and eat. And dispatcher called and said, would you care to run back down to the trailer park? We had a little trailer park down at the end of town. Said there's a domestic going on down there. Oh, I was aggravated. I had to put my gun belt back on and all this and that. And I took off, and I went down and I pulled up to this trailer, and where I'm familiar with, because we've been there, it's usually the same places, same officers go to and stuff. It's just a common thing. I got out and I knocked on the door, and this girl come to the door, and I said, what's going on here? And she said, it's okay now, Fred. Everything's okay. I said, no, it wasn't okay a while ago, because they called me to come back out. So what's happening? And she said, well, me and Junior got in an argument, and I hit him. And I said, you hit him? And she said, yeah. I said, what he doing? She said, he hit me back. So I said, where's he at? She said, he's over there in the chair. And I walked inside the trailer. There he's sitting, his lazy boy. And I said, Junior, what's going on? He said, it's okay, Fred. We're okay now. He said, we just got in an argument, and I forget her name. But anyway, he said his wife's name. He said, she hit me. And I said, what'd you do? And he said, I hit her back. I said, really? I said, okay. Well, now, I looked at her, and I told her, I said, look at Junior. And she looked at him. I said, tell Junior, say, Junior, you're under arrest. And she looked at me and giggled. I said, tell him. And she looked at him. She said, Junior, you're under arrest. And I looked at Junior. I said, Junior, look at her and tell her she's under arrest. And he said, you're under arrest. And they laughed and giggled with each other. They thought it was a joke. I said, okay, guys, let's go. And they said, what are you talking about? And I said, you're under arrest. I'm taking you to jail. And they said, you can't do that. You can't take us to jail. I said, yeah. Yeah, you said that he hit you, and he said that you hit him. You guys have assaulted each other. I'm not. They said, you can't arrest us. I said, I'm not. I'm not arresting you. You're arresting each other. You guys made the allegation against the other one. I said, let's go. I put them in the car. I took them to the jail. On the way to jail, they're sitting back there in the back seat of that car like they was in a limousine, and they're on a date. Had that glass panel in between us like an old limousine would have, and they're sitting back there all hugged up and smooching, and get almost to the jail, and Junior hollers up and say, Fred, you think you could do us a favor? And I said, what's that? He said, you think you could get them to put us in the same cell? That's just a memory that stands out. That's when I was telling that story about domestics and how they work out. That's how fast people can change from being mad at each other to assaulting or getting mad at the police officer or somebody else. It's a 5-minute video. It ain't that long. Hopefully I didn't waste your time. And other than that, catch you on the next one, guys.